Hey Soul Tribe, it's Kate and Kerry.
We are so excited to have you hear this new episode. Please review and subscribe at the end. It's free and it helps us keep spreading our message to you, our awesome listener. Thanks so much and enjoy the episode.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Soulsessed Twins. I am Kate, your host in New York.
Hi, guys. It is Kerry, your host in California. And Kate and I are so excited to do another episode with you guys. And this is a really personal topic and something that Kate and I have both really had to investigate and go through and recover from and get healthy with, which is our relationship with food. And we're just going to explore how all of us and everyone, has that relationship and what's that like to develop a healthy one.
Yeah, and obviously everyone has their varying degrees of food and their relationship with it, right? But I think overall, every single person has some disordered eating as when they think when their relationship with food, everyone has some kind of disordered eating. I think there's such a stigma to like having an eating disorder and being so shameful about it. But because when we say like I have an eating disorder, there is such marked shame around saying that. But everyone, if you say it, like everyone has disordered eating. Like no one doesn't have their little picadillo. They don't have their little thing when it comes with food. And again, some are really intense about it. Some have real eating disorders, which is the full-blown bulimia or anorexia. And some have just like a lesser form of some kind of disordered eating.
Yeah. And even if it's not everyone, we'll say most people, right? Because it's a very easy thing to get attached to, abuse, control, the whole thing that we're going to get into. And I really found it fascinating and, alarming and quite sad. But just during the pandemic alone, eating disorders have increased 70% since the pandemic. I mean, that is enormous, and especially in teens. So 1 in 4 teens actually has some form of depression, which actually leads to and can lead to an eating disorder.
Probably because anything that goes unaddressed, you, especially being a teenager, that's really when it started with us, with, in high school. And my journey or why I turned to food was because I wasn't communicating what was going on with me. There was no healthy outlet for me, and I didn't seek it. I didn't go out and look for that. And ultimately, food came into my life where you see it, you see it in high school, you see the cooler girls that are older than you or your friends around you starting to dabble with eating disorders. And whether or not, it's extreme, it doesn't matter. It was the start of it and where that piqued my interest. Like, wow, that she's getting a ton of attention. I need an outlet. This is like a home run. Like I'm going to try starving myself. I'm going to try this. And that for me is how it started, was starving, was restricting, which is really anorexia. And that's how it started for me, which was in high school.
Yeah. And me, yeah, same, likewise. Just seeing, just the social pressures of it and everybody's, our society is fixated and quite obsessed with thinness, right? And I think especially our generation, I think the up and comings are getting a little more away from the waif figure like Kate Moss, like we have said before. But it's still getting into an unhealthy situation, because why COVID really amplified it was the perfect storm of being isolated, being more alone, not having a way to process your emotions, and not really knowing how to handle anything. And it's, the perfect storm, like I said. So it's something you can control, and then it ends up controlling you. So it backfires, right? So I found it really fascinating too that risk factors are socio-cultural, pressure to be thin, family influences, criticism in your family, dieting, biological contributions, a genetic disposition, which I found fascinating, and biological personality variables such as perfectionism, disassociation, maturity fears, and interpersonal distrust. So having all of that, and body dissatisfaction, and an identity deficit, which I thought was wild, because they said a real cause of eating disorders is not having an adequate identity formation, which I thought for you and I, like twins, right? That our identity was so enmeshed in each other, it was hard to know who we were fully individually, right? So that I found fascinating. And, seeing it a lot in high school, and then seeing it in you, and all the attention you got was, a way to get some for myself.
Right.
Attention.
I mean, and that's how it starts. It's like what you're saying is so valid, because the introduction to an eating disorder, say you pick it up from a friend, say you pick it up from a sibling, say you pick it up from, where you were introduced to it with a twin or an after school special, which was my experience with it. It's not their fault. It's you will be prone to it. So, with my story and with how the eating disorder started, sure, like it piqued my interest. And that's so true, because I was already genetically prone to it.
Yes.
So the story is, yes, I was seeing friends and I was seeing the cool girls and all of this dabbling with it, but everybody saw it. And I was the one who was drawn to it. My girlfriend next to me saw it too, but then just kept moving on. There was no interest there. There was no peak of wanting to do it herself, And that was the story with me, was that I was desperate for some kind of communication, and I didn't know the healthy way. I saw this. It was a wonderful way to numb everything that was going on for me, to quiet it all down, and an utter satisfaction of still, I guess, fitting that mold of thinness, like the physical part of it, quelling all of my feelings and pain inside of me temporarily, and being able then to act like everything was okay. Because a lot of the times when we are losing weight and we obsess about that, it's all about the body and all of that. It's all ego. Nothing is being addressed, right? When we think about that, when we diet, that's why so many diets fail. Try this one, try that one, this one. And you go on and you start to lose weight. You start to feel really good, but ultimately it doesn't last, because there's no real substance of recovery there. It's not about the weight. It's not about that. And when we focus on the weight, we lose our recovery. We lose the real trying to get healthy with food. You lose all of that, because that's not what it's all about. That's the symptom. That is just something for you to focus on, the brain to attach to, is the number on the scale.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just such a sense of control. You're controlling something now in your life, because that was what happened for me. I felt so out of control and I felt so helpless and I felt so alone. In particular, at that stage, I think when I really started was when you were going through Graves' disease. And I had gone through a breakup that was very severe for me. And I just had no outlet. I didn't have anyone to talk to. I didn't know how to. I did have people to talk to, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to process feelings. And it just was sort of the perfect thing for me to grab onto, that I felt like I had like I could hold something that was my own and flush out these emotions. And the only way to sort of process them, even though it was really just sort of, squelching them down, but they were getting somewhat rinsed out, if that makes sense. And I was feeling something, even though I was numbing it. And that's where it really took off for me, because it is so true. It's like food is but a symptom.
Mhm.
Same thing with drinking. Alcohol's but a symptom, right? Shopping's but a symptom. Sex but a symptom. So of what? Of an emotional disorder. So we have to just get into, well, why? What is going on there? And to really start to take out the emotion from food, which we're going to get into on how to do that, because it just really becomes so emotional, and that connection to it has to get broken, because it just turns into massive obsession and habit, and something that's what has to get broken, and the emotional has to get dealt with properly.
Yeah. That was it for me. It was this huge avenue into, like I said, I guess, masking a lot of what was going on. And yes, the eating disorder for me started because of Graves' disease, which is everything to do with your thyroid. I talked about this already on a previous episode, but I was eating like 4,000 calories, I mean, just thousands of calories a day, and was 80 pounds. I just could not gain weight. And that's what happens when you have Graves' disease. Your thyroid is just overstimulated, it's over processing, and you can't, you metabolize food at a rapid pace. You cannot put weight on, you actually lose it. So when I finally got diagnosed with that and was put on medication, the medication started to put weight on my body. And it was the first time that I ever realized what calories were, that there was skim milk and whole milk. There were differences to that. I never had to pay attention to it. And I didn't know how to deal with that. Had no clue how to deal with it. And that's where, you look to your left, you look to your right, and you see girls restricting and abusing their bodies and all of that, and being self-destructive. And the way that I was growing, I then hated myself. It's those teenage years. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable. Then what better way than to treat myself like shit further? And I then just started to go into starving myself. But the thing with anorexia and starving myself was, it wasn't, it only masked my pain so far. Like, I needed way more than what anorexia was doing, and which is why I got into bulimia. Bulimia is so much more of an angrier eating disorder. I had so many pent up feelings. And the way that, bulimia is with somebody is that, eating large amounts of food and pushing all of those feelings and whatever is going on, the rat race going on in your head is pushing all of those feelings and emotions down. And it's a numbing feeling. And then when you purge, there is the biological part of it, which is really the brain too. The neurological part of it is that then it releases the dopamine at big amounts. It's just like any substance, drugs, food, alcohol, obviously, alcohol, anything that you abuse. That is why we go back to it, is because the chemicals in our body that make us feel really good, which is dopamine, gets released, but at bigger amounts, at large, quantities. And that was it for me. It solved all my problems. And
Seemingly.
until it didn't. And, I'll go into the science of why until it didn't, why that happens is because over time, your body then doesn't produce as much dopamine as it does at first. And over time, this stuff, this abuse, whatever we're doing, starts to stop working.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you just said so much there that's just wild. First of all, it's so interesting. Usually the first triggering factor is environmental stressors, right? And our personality features is what either has you lean more towards anorexia or bulimia. Isn't that wild? So anorexia is more like severe, can really restrict, and bulimia just doesn't have, they just can't. They're too tempted to then be able, to not be able to eat. And something else that you were saying.
Well, what's interesting too is with the anorexia, because you're so depleted of food, because bulimia too, but at least some kind of something is getting in there nutrient wise, like you're not throwing up every single thing that you ate. So with anorexia, the depression was so big. I was so depleted of energy that it really brought me down. And that control was really scary. Because once you start this journey and this fucking
Nightmare,
rat hole, like just awful with food, when you really, you think you are in control in the beginning. It is a wonderful way to gain some kind of control in your life and power, that feeling. Like I said, ego, it's all like superior on the exterior, but you're inferior on the interior. You're feeling like terrible shit right on the inside, but on the outside, that's really what you're looking for. And the anorexia really scared me. It's powerful as hell. It really, it takes over. You're in control until you're not, and you can't eat. Like, it is really, really so scary.
anorexia is the 12% of people, the death rate is 12% more than any other mental illness. 12% more of any illness, people die from anorexia. 12% more than any other. So
yeah, wild. I believe it, because when it grabs hold of you, you can't get out. I mean, it mentally, because it messes with you chemically. You change all of your neurotransmitter systems, all of it. You completely alter it. We talk about that with alcohol too.
Yeah, well, it's so interesting because I was reading this in this study that anorexians, they feel their alarms in their body are different than the average person. So starving themselves shuts down these uncomfortable sensations that they get. So that's what really starts it, is to try to stop feeling these extra alarms that they get. and it just shuts down the whole body, and they're not feeling it anymore. So it's like, oh, it's quiet inside now, but it goes obviously way too far. But isn't that amazing that they feel differently? They have different sensations that go on in the body that slow it down to stop them. So they're not feeling it anymore. And also dopamine, their reaction to people sit down, with a meal, or just dopamine makes them feel like excited and feel good. And anorexians feel nervous.
Mhm.
The dopamine makes them feel nervous. It does not create excitement. It creates nervousness and anxiety.
I
That's
mean,
fascinating.
well, 1,000,000% can relate to it. I'm getting flashbacks of just any type
Oh,
of, yeah, family meal or dinner because I was young. I mean, we were living with our family. We were with mom and dad and our siblings, and every meal was utter anxiety, utter nervousness, that feeling. I mean, oh, because the anorexia for me is all about control. And when you're being brought to a table of people eating, there's that massive form of being out of control. And so that is makes perfect sense to me where people,
yeah.
yeah,
And also, too, bringing yourself to the table, it's not as private anymore.
right.
And people are going to know what you're eating and what you're not eating. So it's massive pressure, social pressure, familial pressure, um, that's out in the open. And these diseases are, anorexia is way more out in the open. It's so interesting that bulimics are more apt to get help than anorexics, because bulimics are so disgusted, and it's so disturbing. It's profoundly disturbing to them, the act of eating, binging, and purging. But anorexics, this is profound. I read this, frequently seem to be indifferent to their disorder and actually deny their illness. It's so true. It's like anorexics are sitting there skeletons, and they're like, I'm totally fine. I don't have a problem. But bulimics are more aware that they do. And the count, the, percentages on how many people have it, how many women are affected, men are too, but not as much as women, is, somewhat so inaccurate, because it's such a shameful, they're both so shameful diseases that they're not um, admitted to. So it's hard to measure. That was
Again,
just,
yeah.
yes, interesting.
And what you touched on is that eating disorders are so, it's your little secret. It's your private, personal, really intimate relationship with someone, something, because it is like someone, but it is this something that nobody else can make sense of it and formulate the way that you do. It's so, oh my God, is it so true? It just, it's just beyond powerful. I feel like for me, food was way more devastating and wrecked my life more than alcohol did. It really brought me to my fucking knees like nothing else. Yes, of course, alcohol was like, but it just, food, I think, was just so much harder to get healthy with. Well, and also because you still have to live with it. You still got to eat, 3 times a day, and that's what they talk about. But
Yeah.
um
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, I got sucked so into it, but I had the opposite. I feel like alcohol destroyed me. Food wrecked me completely, but I was able to stop doing all this on my own. I was like, this isn't my jam, and this is so humiliating. So much shame. Oh my God, right? And it just owned me in a way that I was like, no, this isn't going to happen anymore. And I mean, this is years in. This is like, I I mean, not funny, but Kate and I, we don't mean to laugh at it. This is like serious stuff, but we're recovered to where, I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely needed help and I got it, which was incredible that we have these sources out, out in the world for us, which was OA. So even though I was bulimic and anorexic, just totally effed with food, it was OA was called Overeaters Anonymous. And that's where you go, no matter what you do with food, overweight, underweight, throwing it up, starving, whatever. OA is there for you. And I went through that program like I did AA, like, it's a 12-step program. And it's the same type of 12-step formula. And I remember the day I never threw up again was I think it was my last amends or most meaningful one. Amends is where you go to a relationship and you go and you own your shit basically, and you apologize for it. And the last day that I ever threw up was when I made my amends to my brother, Jay. That was the last time. And it really showed me like how much relationships really take hold of your life and can mean so much to you and do mean so much to us. And when we go unaddressed and we pretend that shit is not going on and that everything is okay or will be okay, like, let's just be okay. It doesn't work like that. You really got to show up. You got to get honest. You have to own your stuff. And it really shows you at the end of the day, it's for you. It's to save your own life. It's not about them.
Yeah. And it's, you're just reminding me of secrets.
Mm-hmm.
Just having anything within you that you're trying to cover up or hide, and it eats you alive. Funny pun intended. I mean, it literally eats you alive. So, yeah. And just, having just such the need for control over yourself and your body, right? And just all the obsession, the obsessive thoughts on being thin, and, it just spirals out of control. And I do want to get into that, like just how, more toward everybody, like not taking it to the extreme of anorexia and bulimia. It is so fascinating to read that it is a biological hereditary. It can be biological hereditary. That just, turns, you take it either to a pathological level of the extreme, or you don't. But in the beginning, when we were discussing, like, pretty much everyone, most women, most people have somewhat of a distorted relationship with food, and having to, how do you fix that? Right. So want to get into just sort of tackling how to get into tools on amending it and fixing it and healing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I also want to, because there is so much shame associated with food and, disordered eating and being, whatever your relationship is with it, that's not healthy. What really helped me, and it also helped me with alcohol, is that these things, these substances that we struggle with, it's not a moral failing. It's not a choice or a character flaw. Like that really helped me. It wasn't about, bad people trying to be good. It really is about sick people trying to get well. That's what this is. And it's just, there is nothing that you can do in terms of what happens with us chemically, and it's with our brain. That's the way that we are wired. Our brain is wired to reward us when we do something pleasurable. And eating is pleasurable. There's a ton of other, things that we do, exercising or, again, shopping, drinking, all of it, but it's linked to our survival trigger. And that is the release of the neurotransmitter called dopamine. So not only does it make us feel good, but it encourages us to keep doing what we're doing. And it's teaching our brain to repeat the behavior, good or bad. It's telling us, the brain, this is a behavior that should be remembered and repeated.
Yeah, and that's how you either fall into deadly habits or good ones. Regardless, it's the chemicals.
Right.
So
But what you said earlier is that some are prone to take it to the level of addiction, and some have more milder forms. But wherever you fall on that spectrum, that is what is happening. It's like us liking it too much, whatever that tolerance is for you. If it's too much for you, it's too much for you. My too much for me is purging 6 times a day or 4 times a day, whatever it was. Your too much might be an extra slice of cake when you said you didn't want it. Like, that's what this all factors into everybody. That's why I'm saying that too, and there is light at the end of the tunnel where, yeah, I mean, Kerry and I were like talking about this, like the fact that I don't have addiction to any food in my life, I can have anything that I want to eat, is a complete miracle. Miracle.
well, it's not a miracle. You did the work.
And I was going to say, and that's what Kerry and I were saying. We're like, how did this happen? It's like, a lot happened to get here.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like you can't even imagine how Kate and I lived. I mean, those years were the saddest.
Mhm.
I mean, just looking at it, bird's eye view now is like, it was so horrible. And we both nearly died several times, right? I mean, it was severe. We had it severe. So to be able to be saying that right now is just unbelievable. To be able to have anything, brownies, fried chicken, pizza, chips, whatever, everything is really remarkable. And we're just saying that to show you can recover, extreme or not.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into why, because it's really it becomes very emotional. You just have to take the emotion out of eating in an overreactive way. I mean, you can be like, this is great. This is so delicious. It is. But when you're trying to fill a void, and you're trying to fix yourself and you feel a little out of control, or I will have it, I won't have it, I will have it, that's what I mean. You're emotionally connected and you got to break that.
Well, and chemically,
Yeah.
I don't want to say addicted, but that, like, it is like we become chemically habituated to this stuff. Like, it just is like, you know what it is? Like, I remember you saying this in one episode about like an alarm bell goes off.
Oh, I just thought that.
Yeah. It's 4 o'clock. Like, where's my Snickers? Like, what? Like, I'm supposed to have a ton of sugar right now. And I went through this. This happened to me.
Yeah. Oh my God, I remember it. I mean, it literally is. It just becomes a habit, and your brain is a computer. And you're literally giving it programs. And that's it. And it's just doing its job. It's like, okay, whatever you wake up, ABC. Afternoon, here we go. Time to ABC. At night, oh, here it is. It's so fascinating, honestly, you guys, when you can take a step back which is actually real control. Because when you're thinking you have control, you're really out of control. And when you can take a step back and just sort of see it, observe it a little more than just being in it, oh my God, it's wild. You can really just see the ritual and the habit just showing up. And you're like, oh, it's 4 o'clock. I just always do this at this time. And you start to be able to change it once you can step back and say, okay. But the thing about changing anything in our lives, you have to want to do this. This is not easy shit. This is really hard, but you're worth it. And it's like you have to be committed to change. You have to really be committed to yourself wanting to be better.
Yeah, because what you're reminding me of is too, when we fall into these negative patterns of behavior, right? So one trickles into another and into another. Like when I was bulimic, when I was living this like lifestyle, what else am I doing? I'm smoking. I'm not that honest.
Stealing.
I'm stealing. I mean, we were like extreme, but my point is like when we're treating ourselves badly in any way, it feeds itself. So then you're talking badly to yourself. You're surrounding yourself with not so positive influences,
I
right?
wanted to say too, it's such a direct result of guilt. You feel so guilty for how you're living and what you're doing, and it just spirals into the next bad behavior.
They really do. They feed off of each other. And why it makes me think that is because now being in recovery for 18 years and unwiring myself and doing so much inner work, so much of this unraveling of old attitudes, ideas, behaviors, emotions, feelings, and going through all of this stuff, I don't have the abuse anymore, right? I'm not abusing food. I'm not abusing alcohol. I'm not abusing relationships. I talk to myself and, beautifully all day long. I love myself. I really pay attention to the relationships that are in my life, and I'm strict as hell. And I think it's because I've been through hell. I've been through a lot, and I know the power of influence and the power of who is around you and how powerful it is. And so I don't mess with that. And it's only because you can't mess with wellness when you want to be well. You can't.
Yeah. And I just feel like, too, it just doesn't fit. Like if you're around something that doesn't feel good or, just sort of doesn't fit the same lifestyle that I'm living of wellness and, treating people well, treating myself well. It's like what is it? Like a magnet that's like reverse magnet. It just won't stick as much as, it would if you're in bad behaviors, bad treatment of yourself. I did want to say that too. Like, I love myself today. And also, I care for myself today. Like, I care what I experience. I care about myself. I take care of who I am. I take care of myself, which is like amazing. I can't even tell you how much I hated myself. I
Mhm.
could not even look in the mirror without just feeling utter hatred, total disgust, and just wanting to die. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And my body, I hated my body. I mean, it was just body dysmorphia, I mean, it was just, I hated every bit of me. And it's like, and I feel like that, I feel like normal people who don't take it to the extreme will relate to that. I feel like most women are like, they really, if they're honest and think about it, like, I hate my body. I hate myself in that way. And there's so many things I'm not happy about. And all of that really can be addressed and changed around.
Yeah, it's definitely just how you have to start to look at things rather than what are the size of the jeans that I'm being, fitting into versus how am I taking care of my body today? And really realizing that you were made by something that's way bigger than us, right? And there is an intention for you. And so much of society puts on us what we should look like and what's going to be acceptable. And when we try to put that aside and focus on loving ourselves and focusing on taking care of our bodies, our minds, our spirits, you will become the shape and size you were intended to be and not be at war with yourself. It's not about the size of the jeans. It's about the serenity within yourself and loving who you are meant to be, finding that person.
Yeah, I love that. And really taking it from living, which we always say, it's funny, but it literally has to do with everything in our lives, looking externally and going internal, right? And so much social media has an effect on everyone. But I was going to say, they were saying it does, but it's not all of it, of course, but it has a huge influence. And to really stop comparing, stop looking for what the ideal is, or recognizing how influenced you are by it, and how influenced you are by your friend who looks like this, or some celebrity that looks like that. And just going within you. What do I need? Fuck all the rest. What is going on here? I want to feel better. And when you stop, trying to look better, that's when you can start to feel better, because it's an internal job. And then you got to do the work, because it's not the food. The food is but a symptom. It just always comes down to that. And yeah, disconnecting the emotion from the food and
Yeah.
doing the work.
And what?
And doing the work. You got to do the work.
Yeah. uh Gonna go over just like how did I start? How did I start recovery? And like I mentioned, I went to a 12-step program, which was OA, saved my life. It was really just starting to understand relationship with food and my own picadillos, my own thing, my own suffering really with it and how to unwind it. And I think the most simplest way to start unwinding this problem wherever you are with it is called how. And how is acronym for H, honest. You have to get honest with yourself. You've really got to be honest with this relationship and what it does for you, because this was really mind-blowing and really smacked me in the face was when one day I was in recovery and trying to get healthier with food and stuff, and you have to really, someone said to me, I said, I'm so sick of this. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And my friend said to me, well, it's doing something for you. Otherwise, you would not be doing it anymore. And that hit me like a ton of bricks, is that, yes, we can all bitch and complain and say, this sucks. I hate it. I'm not doing this today. I'm not having sugar today. I swear I'm not going to have it. And then you have to look at, what it's not serving you, right? It's not serving you anymore. But what is it's still doing for you that's keeping you locked in. And for me, I was fucking terrified to change. I wanted to change so badly, but I was terrified to change. What was life going to be like without it, without this misery, without this crutch? And the honesty with that in all the full circle with whatever your issues are, how you're abusing it is so important to change. So you got to get honest. The O is the open-mindedness. Be open to not knowing everything. Be open to new information. Be open to seeing things differently. And the W is willingness. Be willing to change. Be willing to let go and lose it all, whatever that is. Be willing to do it because this is way more important. You are way more important than anything that you're still hanging around the hoop for.
God, it's so true. And you just reminded me of the first time of when I stopped binging and purging. And OA was just too controlling for me. That was why it's like to each their own. Some people love AA, some people don't. Some people love OA, some people don't. It was too rigid. It was too controlling. It was too like obsessive. I was like, I don't want to be measuring my food or controlling it or, thinking about it so much. So for me, everyone's different, but I was able to, just based on like shame and disgust and not wanting to do this anymore. I remember coming up from the subway and there was my alarm. My brain was saying, oh, here we go. It's 4:00. You're going to go and get pizza and cakes and all this stuff. And I came up from the subway and I just didn't go. And I was like, I've had enough. I'm sick of being sick. I'm changing and I'm going to turn this around. And it was so hard, but the willingness was louder than the defeat, the give in. And I just remember going home and feeling my feelings and like blasting through the agony of what that binge or what that overeat was going to seemingly give me relief from. And because it didn't in the end, it all stayed there and got worse. But I felt it this time and I just pushed through that feeling of whatever I wanted the food to heal. And I actually healed it. And it's like every time, every single time, you have to go through it, feel it to heal it. And it was really uncomfortable, really hard. And I journaled and, called somebody. And, that's how you sort of break the habit. You're starting to break the association, break the ritual, break the chemical explosion in your brain through something externally rather than internally processing it.
Yeah, definitely. For me, it definitely was very useful to get on a meal plan of sorts for the day, because when Kerry, you're talking about like disassociating your emotion, your feeling with food, I couldn't do it. I was so far in. It owned me. And so what was so helpful for me to start this was knowing like I am powerless over this. Let's just call it sugar. I am powerless over sugar. I have no right to have it in my life at this point because it owns me. I don't say when I'm going to have it. It's telling me when I'm going to have it. And I can't just have a cookie. I will eat the entire box of Oreos. I don't have any control with this. And so taking things out of my life temporarily, it's not forever. I can eat however many Oreos I want today. And how I stop is that I gained a stomach. I gained a full barometer, which I completely negated and left for dead when I was abusing food, is that I couldn't feel full. I didn't know when to stop because I neglected that
Yeah.
that alert. I didn't have it. And
Yes.
so,
My God.
yeah, the powerless, you got to really get honest with where this food is in your life. And if it owns you and you can't stop, take it out and just you're powerless over it. That's it. And the food plan was so great because it really helped me kill the control. So much of the eating disorder or disordered eating has to do with control. And so marking it out of like, all right, this is what I'm going to have for breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, dessert, whatever it is, put it down for yourself. So you're not ruminating over when, what, who, with, where, how I'm getting food. What all of that is taken away. So the obsession starts to be depleted. That
Yeah.
was me.
Yes. And I also wanted to say that, like, out of sight, out of mind. Help, like, prepare yourself in advance to get success. So if something in the kitchen, you have a box of donuts sitting there for the kids, and it's hard for you to resist, put it away and put something you like in its place. So
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be, it's not like and to turn it around from feeling like you're depriving yourself and actually looking at it for what it is, which is you're taking care of yourself. It's not deprivation, it's care. And you're giving yourself something that is good for yourself rather than harmful. And like Kate said, down the road, you'll look at the donuts differently and you'll be able to have them. But right now, it's too sensitive, it's too slippery, and to just put it out until you do some work. What were you going to say?
Because it is all about the food in the beginning. It's all about the food. That's what we
Yeah.
think this is. And we're saying to you, has nothing to do with the food. It
But you
doesn't.
got to take a step back to be able to see that and be able to see your brain, what's going on here? Because I did want to say that too. Like, what were you going to say? Sorry, finish your thought.
No, you have to put that down in order to be able to really see what you're eating over. What is this whole thing? Why am I doing this? Why am I in this whole pattern of self-destruction? And the only way to really start to de-thaw and start to really feel these feelings is to put this stuff down that you're has such a hold on you. And it really helped me, like the support. I had to go to women that came before me, that did this before me. I wouldn't even know how to do this stuff without that kind of support because I don't know what I'm doing. Like the whole thing, it's you're not alone. That's all I'm going to say. There's tons of support out there for you and how to start like day one. You're not alone.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I just remember you're reminding me of like this one amazing girl that was just like my best friend right away from, uh, do you know who I'm talking about?
Oh, there were a few.
Nikki.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I just loved her so much, and we're still in touch today. But you're just reminding me of her and always having each other. We called each other all the time, right? So you definitely need support and therapy. I mean, there's stuff going on there. You think it's about the food, but it's not. And so to unravel a lot of this stuff that you're eating over, to have support with is why wouldn't you, right? Why wouldn't you give yourself that support if you can? Because it's there. I also wanted to say, once you're going to start to do this, What is the story you have going on with food? So that's what you has really and really helps me is to, whoa, what story do I have going on here? What are the limiting beliefs that I have attached here? And what do I believe about food? What I can have, what I can't, and why? And what does it do for you? What are you thinking it's doing? That really helps too.
Yeah, I really think, I mean, what you're making me think about is that, it's escapism. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
great way to not deal with shit. And so when Kerry was saying earlier about like, you gotta want it, you gotta want to do this, it's fact. And because you are going to be dealing with the stuff that you've been eating over, you're no longer eating over. That's it. Like there's a reason why we're doing it. And a lot of it is that we don't want to deal with it. But I'm telling you, I mean, the reward is nothing owns you. I fucking so many things I had no control over. And one of them being food. I mean, just having any type of dependency on anything is hell, is literal hell on earth. And to be able to, over the course of 18 years, be free from any substance that I really get to decide. I have no chemical addiction to anything, again, is a fucking miracle. And I'm telling you, how is that not worth it? If it didn't happen, if this really was not the case, I wouldn't do it. I would be roaming around with, a beer in one hand, a cigarette in the other, and a donut in my mouth. Like that would be it. But I'm telling you, there is a genuine, legitimate payoff to this stuff of getting honest with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is. It's all you're just trying to avoid emotions and feeling, but it just doesn't work.
And they're not that big. Like they feel big, they feel enormous. But when you really start to sit down and deal with this stuff over time, like Kerry and I, like she just laughed earlier, or it's silly. Like I'm telling you now, stuff that you think that you're going to never, ever tell anyone and take to your grave because you think it's so damn serious. It's not. So many people have done it before you.
Yeah, and also too, what really helps is, we love this word and it's true, but don't stop there. What are your triggers? What's triggering you? And then it's like, oh, this person triggers me, or this situation triggers me. Why? You have to get to why. What is the root cause here? You can't just leave it at my mom really pushes my buttons and makes me want to eat. Yeah, but why? What's going on internally there? What's that relationship? What is it making you feel? What's going on? And where did it come from? Where did it start? That's where all of this unraveling happens from, right? And oh, a party makes me, I don't know what to do. I'm nervous, so I just eat. Why? Well, you have to deal with your social anxiety, right? It's not an excuse. There's no excuses. And that's getting honest, right? It's like getting honest about what's going on inside you. What is going on? And really addressing it. And there's just you don't stop at this person, place, or thing. It's always inside and coming up for you to get it healed.
Mm-hmm.
It's so amazing. And I know, I don't know if any girls listen to us, but I am telling you, I will never forget the day when I thought, who the fuck am I doing this for? Who am I doing this for? Living my head in a toilet. Certainly not me, really, when I thought about it. And how am I going to do this for the rest of my life? Like, really? So the worth it to me was not worth it. And I just thought I'd rather be overweight, honestly, how I am, if that's what it is, then this. And I wanted to take the risk for my own happiness. And I wanted to live for me, not for others. And that was when I had real control, because I turned it around to me mattering rather than these external people that I was even making up. I mean, I'm like trying to look good for this supposed husband that's coming, and I can't even date anybody because I'm so fucking fucked up. So it's like so ridiculous, right? And then that was what had me like, who am I doing this for? Not me. And that's when change really happened. So you matter. You fucking deserve, oh my God, every bit of love and kindness and care that's on this earth. And guess what? You can give it to yourself. That's where it's got to come from.
It really does. That's all this is really about, is just, when you're talking about like, what are the mom issues or whatever they are, a lot of times it's just feeling, that neglect. There's some form of abandonment. There's something, but you have to be able to write that out. You really have to go through these experiences to be free of them and to get freedom from substance.
Yeah, and also too, thinking about actually our listeners, if you are a mom and have a daughter, and this is a big issue, for you, even if it's just dieting and not to the extreme of anorexia or bulimia, or if it is, it's okay. Just look at what's going on in there now in you with your own relationship with food, and you can start to heal it for yourself and your daughter. And then you guys can just both break the cycle. Talk about generational curses. This is a generational curse. You learn what is valued. Thinness is very valued in a lot of families. It was in ours too, and being athletic and all that stuff. And just start to make it healthy. And well, I do remember, I mean,
I just know the beautiful thing with mom though was that she never gave attention to my physical self
oh,
ever.
totally.
She's
Yeah,
like oblivious to it. So I also will say, if you are a mom and your daughter is struggling with an eating disorder, and if she has dabbled in anorexia or bulimia, you're like, you can't control it. You have to go and seek outside help, and it has nothing to do, you're not going to fix it. Like, don't feel this utter, like desperation that it's all on you and that you're going to be able to fix your daughter. You're not like,
yeah,
it's way too powerful. All of this stuff is, even, alcoholism, any type of substance abuse. Go get help, seek the help, and they got to be ready.
yeah,
That's just the case. Like,
yeah.
how many times, like, mom and dad and siblings, everything were just like, just stop. I mean, sure, I want to. It doesn't work like that. So
Yeah,
don't
that's so true.
put that on you, like on your shoulders. Like, none of us are that powerful to heal another human being.
Yeah, or to make them want to change.
Yeah.
You can't. You want that, but it's not possible. So actually, what I want to say is you take care of you heal you, and be the example, and that's all you can be. That's it. And then if they want to join or they want to get help themselves, great. But you're not going to make them change. That's absolutely true. So,
Hopefully this was helpful. This was a really, it's a powerful topic. I think, maybe we go into another episode about it in a different subtopic about it or whatever. But you guys will let us know. Please reach out to us on Instagram. Let us know what you think about any episode. Always go back to past episodes and tune in. I love hearing that you guys have been doing that. And let us know anything. tune into us.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this one is just I think it's just so important. I feel like it just touches most 99.9% of people. And it just is the easiest thing to grab is food. So we completely relate and identify, and it can be healed. So yeah, hope this was helpful. It's so important to me. I just feel like, oh, it's such a torture chamber to be out of control with it. So there is help, and let us know if you want to hear anything more. Love
All right,
you.
guys, tune in next time. We love you. Get soul-sessed.
Bye.
Stay tuned, guys. We are thrilled to be here with each other, and feel so privileged to try and carry a message of hope and positive change to one other person out there. So please subscribe and review and share our podcast to reach that person. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Soulsessed Twins and get daily inspo and connect with us.
Let's build this community together.
100%.
So come back next week and we'll see you then.
Get soul-sessed with us, Soul Tribe.
That's it. Bye, guys.